Koppel, host of the Time for Coffee podcast, where you get first-hand career advice into the jobs and industries that interest you the most. And before we start today's show, I have a quick favor to ask you. If you haven't already, I'd be incredibly grateful if you give us a rating and a review on iTunes. And if you're like me, you need to do it now because you'll forget later and because it's the best way to help others who may be in search of career advice to find this free resource. So press pause if you haven't done it and do it right now. I'll wait. Thanks so much and enjoy today's show. Hey there, Java Junkies. Welcome to another K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. By the way, K-Cups come in 3 sizes, single, double, and triple shots, or roughly 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes in length. So if you don't have time to throw back an entire caffeinated career conversation, these K-Cup mini episodes of T4C can give you a quick caffeinated fix, whether you're on the go or you only have a few minutes to binge. So grab your mug and take a chug, because it's time for a caffeinated career double shot K-Cup with my guest, Jeremy Sirota. Let us flash back very quickly to when you were an undergrad. You went to Berkeley, the University of California, Berkeley, in the mid-90s, and you majored in political science. You said you had a concentration in international affairs, and your senior thesis was not about music. It was about the World Bank's developmental paradigm that you cleverly entitled Chutes and Ladders. Did you have any idea what you wanted to do with your poli-sci degree when you graduated, Jeremy?
I'm going to answer that. I just want to say you may be the first person who's brought up my senior thesis in probably 25 years. So thank you for that. It's a nice reminder. I'm not going to torment you and send you a copy of it. I don't even know if I still have a copy.
I'd probably read it. I'd probably find it interesting.
Well, I'm going to answer that. I want to step back because I think this might be helpful for the audience, which is I actually didn't start off as a poli-sci major. I started off as pre-med at first because I really had no idea what I wanted to do. Then I also didn't go to poli-sci next. I went to philosophy next. And then I got kind of bored because it didn't feel very practical. So I went to rhetoric, which is a more practical, simplified, practical version of philosophy. And then I left rhetoric because I realized you had to take a language to get a rhetoric degree. And I am atrocious at language. It doesn't process in my brain if we want to talk about things I don't do well. And so that's where I landed on political science. And to then answer your question of, did I know what I wanted to do? No, but I did know that I wanted to not do whatever I was going to do in life for at least a year or two. And so that's where I took 2 years off between undergrad and law school to do something totally different than what I'm doing now.
So what was your first job after you graduated and how did you get it?
Yeah. So my first job was at a company which I don't believe exists anymore called Juno Online, which these don't exist really anymore, an ISP, so something like an AOL Online. And I was a Flash designer. Now, Flash, I believe, also no longer exists, which was a sort of design language. In a nutshell, allowed you to almost create like animated GIFs. You could do more with it than that, but that's what we were doing there. So 2 things I didn't know how to do. And this is another thing I want to talk about, the difference between hustling and flexing. When I showed up, I was supposed to be an expert in Flash and an expert designer. 2 things I didn't know how to do: Flash and design. I had a creative background. My mom's an artist, long history of art. I took a lot of art growing up. But what I've always been a big fan of, and this does create stress, this does put pressure on yourself, stretching yourself, flexing. I was like, I'm going to flex into a direction I don't know if I'm capable of, to see what's going to happen when I put myself there. And so when I showed up on day one, I'll talk about how I got the job. I had a Flash book on one leg and I had a design book on the other leg. So I'd never opened Adobe Photoshop in my life. I didn't know how to program in Flash. Interesting first week. And the way I got that job is I spent a lot of time researching what it meant to do that. And I talked to a number of people about what success looked like. I was always really interested in a creative career. That's what I was kind of thinking, though I don't think I ever really wanted that. It just took me time to realize that. And so this was my exploration of potentially where I wanted to go. But it really was just, I put the time into it. And so I showed up at the interview, and luckily they didn't do like tests. Imagine if I had to like deliver something to them. If you're a hiring manager, ask people to deliver work product of what you would expect them to do in their job, because I am the quintessential example of what happens when you don't. And by the way, I evolved very well into the job, but put the time into it. That's what I did to get it.
And I'm noting the fact that you said you had books on either leg. This was pre-internet, pre-web. So you actually had to buy books that you had to read, that you held in your hands and read and taught yourself. So listen, kudos to you. Thanks for tuning in to this K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. If you want to listen to our entire caffeinated career conversation, please check out the show notes for this episode. Thanks so much for listening to this latest episode of T4C. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching services for confused college students and recent grads, feel free to check out the Time for Coffee website under the coaching tab at time4coffee.org or text me at 202-236-5712. That's 202-236-5712.